Hello, my name is Roderick Malden. I am currently serving in the U.S. Army and I'm enrolled in the Information Security Management and Assurance at China University International. In this video, I will discuss the process of creating an information security risk management procedure. I will talk about the identification, classification, and prioritization of information security risks. Not only that, but I will talk about the control mechanism that could be taken with the strategic option to mitigate and control information risk. So, what does security risk management entail? This is an ongoing process of identifying security risks and implementing a plan to address them. Therefore, information security risk management is the process through which risks associated with information technology are managed. The management process involves several activities, which includes identification of the risks, assessing them, and addressing the risks per the organization confidentiality, integrity, and availability measures. While it might be impossible to eradicate all the risks that a business might face, it is necessary to achieve an acceptable risk level in any organization. The end goal of the information security risk management is to mitigate as many IT related risks as possible and achieve the organization's overall risk tolerance. So, how does one create an information risk management procedure? Well, the process is quite involving as it is an ever ongoing process while considering various factors surrounding the organization's IT ecosystem. This is because technology is dynamic and ever changing. Once technology advances, cyber criminals also get intense with their attacks, hence the need to keep updating the management process regularly. Here are the steps involved in the process of creating an information security risk procedure. 1. Identification of the information assets. When creating the information security risk management procedure, you need to start by identifying your information assets. According to the Black Swan Security, an information asset is described as information or data that is of value to the organization, including such information as patent records, uh, intellectual property, or customer information. These assets can exist in physical form or electronically. An organization has to identify and list its information access. This can this can be information such as social security numbers, designs, plans for the future, credit card numbers, patent records, etc. In doing so, the organization has a clear view of what need to be protected. Number 2, classifying the information assets. After identifying the information asset, the next step is to classify the listed information assets based on the sensitivity or confidentiality of the data. Assign a rating to your information asset list that you created in the beginning. Make a priority scale rating your information. Your categories can be the things like public information, internal but not secret, sensitive internal information, compartmentalized internal information, and regulated information. For example, what assets will have the most significant impact on your organization if their confidentiality, integrity, or availability was compromised. In doing so, the organization positions itself in a stable position to take note of how serious various categories need security attention and prioritize them accordingly. Number 3, identifying the vulnerabilities and threats. After categorizing the organization's information assets into different priority classes, the next step is to identify the vulnerabilities of information assets based on their priority. Some of the questions which are crucial to ask in this state are: what system level or software vulnerabilities are putting the confidentiality, integrity, or availability of the asset at risk? What weakness or deficiencies in organization process could result in information being compromised? What are some of the potential causes of access or information becoming compromised. These steps and taking note of the vulner these I'm sorry, this step assists in taking note of the vulnerabilities as well as potential threat facing the information security of the organization. It is important to take note of the environmental threats too, which will come in handy when planning um, mitigation solutions. Besides, threat modeling could come in handy since it helps add context by trying risks to known threats and the different ways those threats can cause risks to become realized via exploiting vulnerabilities. Next, prioritize the risk. Once the risk has been identified, it is also necessary to prioritize these risks in terms of the degree of impact to the organization if the risk event occurs. It is very important for IT professionals for an organization to have an in-depth assessment of the risks they present in the context of their organization's IT environment due to a large number of severe vulnerabilities. There are a couple of things that a company needs to think about when it comes to the prioritization of risks. One is how much money will the company lose if the risk event occurs, and the chance that the risk event would happen again. For any company, this is an important part of their information security risk management procedure because if they don't calculate all the vulnerabilities that could happen and the money could be lost, then they will be out of business before they can even start. Next, identify the controls. This step analyzes how well the company is currently positioned to handle the information security threats as well as see the additional controls can be implemented. A control directly addresses any identified vulnerability or threats by either completely fixing it or lessening the likelihood and or impact of a risk being realized. It is therefore necessary for an organization to ask these questions. What do we already have in place to protect identified assets? What other control measures can we add to protect identified assets? Some control mechanisms can be categorized as physical, technical, and administrative security controls. Physical controls are like um, things like guards, door access, closed circuit television, restricted areas, physical intrusion detection systems, and physical protection systems. Technical controls are things like hardware and software. Hardware is like a level of privilege that restricts access to the operating system programs and firmware programs. The software helps to protect the information on programs like what a user can access on a certain program. Last but not least, administrative controls are things like procedures and policies an organization put in place to help guide employees on what to do in certain situations. Last, implementing a solid risk mitigation strategy. Once the threat Once the threat has been identified and addressed, it is important to set up risk mitigation strategies. These strategies assist in preparation as well as lessen the impact of risk encountered. The first strategy is avoidance. If there is an unwanted consequence coming, then you might be able to avoid it altogether. You can do things like walk away from a certain project or pause the project until the risk is dealt with. The next strategy is acceptance or accepting the risk. It may cost the organization less money to accept the risk than trying to keep fighting it over and over. When the decision to accept the risk is in part based on an estimated prediction, the third strategy is reduction or control. You can start off by reducing the probability of occurrence or the severity of the consequences of an unwanted risk or implementing controls that focus on management or decision making process. The last strategy is transference. This is one this one is one of those not ideal strategies to use but is an option. Basically you are shifting the burden of the risk to another party by giving up some control. In conclusion, an information security risk management procedure is very critical in any business as more operations are becoming digitized. From what I have discussed, we can see that this procedure combines the information you've gathered about assets, vulnerabilities, and control to address risks. Thank you for your time. I have attached a reference link and material in the video description that can be used to further your knowledge in this information. Thank you.